Hello and welcome to Camp Xbox. Namco is one of those legendary gaming companies known for games like Pac-Man and Galaga, and they love re-releasing them. It's a time-honored tradition for game consoles to get packs of Namco games all in one, and the original Xbox is no exception, receiving Namco Museum in 2002. I recently went through this one, and let me give you some history along with a review. All footage was captured from an original Xbox, and I'd like to thank my YouTube channel members for their support. And let's go ahead and hop into this one. Namco as a company dates back to 1955 when it was founded by Masaya Nakamura, who opened the business under the name Nakamura Seisakusho Company. He started making pop cork guns, but after creating several rocking horse attractions for department stores, the company began to pivot. Over the 70s, the company would get into electronic gaming and would also build rides for Disney. Yet at the same time, Atari was trying to get a foothold in Japan, and when that failed, Nakamura bought it. Things started to change for the company with this purchase. In 1977, the company changed its name to Namco. By the end of the decade, they would release the major hit Galaxian, which would lead to many hits over the 80s that would make it into this collection we're talking about today. Games like Galaga and Pole Position, but most notably Pac-Man. One of the most iconic gaming characters of all time was under Namco's belt, and just having that one game meant so much for the company's future. By the 90s, these arcade classics would get compilations on the PlayStation. It felt like 10 to 15 years of passing time was actually a long leap in gaming by the mid-90s, and over several volumes, Namco would pack arcade classics into Namco Museum titles, with a museum for you to look at and see the history of the games. They would do well, and of course, they would continue this into the next console generation. This Namco Museum was first released for the Nintendo 64 as Namco Museum 64, a companion to the PS1 titles. However, this release would have a more streamlined collection, including Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Dig Dug, Pole Position, Galaxian, and Galaga. It would be ported to the Dreamcast in 2000 and to the Game Boy Advance in early 2001. Yet the version we would get would first come to the PS2 at the end of 2001 with new arrangements for Pac-Man, Galaga, and Dig Dug, along with some bonus games, rounding out the number of total titles to 12. This would finally make its way to the Xbox and GameCube on October 9th, 2002, and these versions would never make it outside of North America. I actually have really fond memories of this collection in particular. I remember having an Xbox, but not many games for it. Yet one day my parents came home with this game, and they were happy to show me the games that they grew up with, and I played a ton of Namco Museum, and it's one that I return to often. It's games like these that made me love video games of any generation. So I'm excited to go through this one. Yet this is a compilation, so the way we're going to cover this one will be a bit different than my usual reviews. So let's get this review started, and I'm going to tell you how I felt about it, starting with the presentation. For me, one of the cores of any arcade or retro compilation is how it's presented to you. Sure, they could throw a bunch of games on here, and you select it through a clickable list, yet it's about going that extra mile to wrap everything together. Well, I think Namco Museum does an okay job. It's a very clean set of menus with straightforward titles and previews for each game. It's a game where you start it up and you just hop right into it, which I can appreciate. There is no fluff and it's very clean. It's an approach that I don't think is as good as its predecessors with the PlayStation Namco Museum titles. I love the idea of a museum where you walk in it and look at each game like an art piece with information about its history. I understand that this is more of a simplified idea of that, but without that museum, the selection feels like it lacks in love, especially when you consider there are no historical elements at all. Not even a backstory of its creation, manuals, or ads. You get the game, and that's it. And when you look at a lesser console with all of those features and things to read, it feels like less effort went into a console that could provide more. As someone who loves history, stuff like this is what I love in these old school compilations. So I think it's lacking in terms of extra content, though there are 2 unlockable games that we could talk about later. Yet I do want to say the classic games are here, and you will find something enjoyable in them all, yet there are a few omissions that I would have loved to have seen, particularly Xevious and Rally X, 2 essential Namco games in my eyes, and they are glaringly missed. I would have loved to have those over the 2 bonus games here, let alone some others that they do include. Yet what you do get from the core 10 is fun, but it just lacks that extra content. It does at least deliver on games. Along with that, we get multiplayer options for the games as well as difficulty selection, so there's at least a little more once you start up the game. But let's go ahead and go into each game and let me tell you how I felt about each and every one of them. So first up is the one and only Pac-Man, first released in 1980. This is one of those games that's hard to even talk about. Culturally, it's one of the most important video games ever created, and it's a game that's so iconic that I feel like if you've never been into gaming, you've played at least one game of Pac-Man. Here, Pac-Man is displayed in all of its simple arcade glory, and it truly stands the test of time on pure simplicity and addictiveness. Now, if you know me, you might know that I don't love playing Pac-Man, and I know that's a controversial way to start this review. It's just a simple lifetime of playing too much Pac-Man. Yet I don't dislike this game at all, and I understand its cultural impact, and while playing it, I do get why people love this game. I just usually don't go to Pac-Man first in compilations like this. Yet I played a ton of it here, especially because you need to play it in order to unlock a game. Yet I do understand it's a classic for a reason. Moving Pac-Man through the maze, getting all the pellets as ghosts chase after you, it's a mix of tenseness and skill. Moving fast, trying to avoid ghosts, but also gathering them up so you can gobble them up for high scores. It's a speedy and fun endurance test where the levels don't change much. It has a set formula and it lets you enter into a trance-like state. The one thing I'm always impressed by in this game is the personalities of all the ghosts and how they're all predictable but so different. It feels insane for an arcade game from 1980. Much like all the other games today, this game is presented well with nice visuals and clear music. This is Pac-Man on the Xbox, and you really can't go wrong with that. Of course, this is an obvious part to any Namco collection, and it's probably the main reason many people got it, so of course Pac-Man is a great inclusion here. There's also Pac-Man Arrangement, an arcade title from 1996 that I feel wasn't widely recognized until its inclusion here. Arrangement is a fresh perspective on Pac-Man without deviating too much from the formula. It's still a maze chase game. Your goal is to collect all the pellets on a level to move on while attacking ghosts. But now we're getting more complex levels. Ones where you have multiple levels to travel between, speed pads to boost you, or even pads to make you jump across the maze. It's all done well with a great pixel design that gives this game a 3D look along with the moving pellets. My favorite part of this game is its striking look, but the gameplay gets updated here too. There's a 5th ghost added in named Kinky. Kinky fuses with the ghosts from around the board and it gives them each new powers, such as the ability to charge at you or drop more pellets on the ground. It's an extra bit of chaos that makes this one feel a bit more modern, along with new power-ups Pac-Man can use that might give you abilities like speeding up around the board. It all leads to a cool final boss, giving this game a wraparound story feel. Yet this means that you can continue at any time, and it does not reset your high score either. So this title is certainly not as difficult as the other arcade titles here today. However, this and the different arrangements are some of my favorite inclusions here. It's cool to see an updated perspective on these games, and it shows just how much gaming had changed within 15 years. Though not as easy to enter and understand as the arcade classic, it has this updated feel I enjoyed. It gives you more Pac-Man action, but in an unexpected way. This arrangement is a lot of fun and a great inclusion here. Unlike Pac-Man, Galaga is the game that I will never refuse to play. If it pops up at an arcade, you know I have to play a round of it. This museum collection is good just for having Galaga. First coming out in 1981, this is a sequel to Galaxian, which we'll talk about later, and it is a fixed shooter. You are on the bottom playing as a ship, and you shoot aliens as they come in. There are patterns to each stage of how aliens enter and set themselves up to attack you. Your goal is just to kill them all and keep on moving. Much like Pac-Man, Galaga lives on simplistic design and addictiveness. Shooting down different enemies is always satisfying, and watching each alien's patterns and learning them is awesome. It's a perfect arcade game because you are put right in the action, and when you get into a groove, it's a blast. It feels great here on the Xbox, and if you have an arcade stick that you can use on the console, it's going to feel perfect on here. Mix in the classic theme music, the sounds of the ships firing, and to me, this is nostalgia heaven, but also legitimately a fun game. My epitome of a fixed shooter classic. Presented here well and fun to play, Galaga is a standout. Galaga also gets an arrangement for this release. This one came to arcades in 1995, and once again, displays a 90s modern technique while still retaining what makes the original a classic. This is still a fixed shooter, meaning your ship is locked to the bottom of the screen, yet the aliens' patterns and designs give it more of a shoot-'em-up feel, where they'll spawn in from giant portals with bomb nodes that allow you to wipe out a bunch of enemies in one hit. They move wildly across the screen, and many will appear in one round. There's a sense of chaos that gives this game great energy. It feels like a true precursor to Galaga Legions in terms of its look and flashiness. This arrangement feels excellent to move into, and I love the aesthetic overall with some great graphics. I also love that you can power up your ship not just to be a double shooter, but also to unlock various new powers. Yet it's still Galaga. It has the same aliens and shooter feel, along with a sleek rendition of the original music and sound effects. Yet once again, it's not as hardcore, allowing you to continue on with your high score even after losing, and it has a level-based approach to it. Something I don't mind, and it complements Galaga here in this collection, and is one of my favorites today. Here is another pure classic with Dig Dug. This game came out in 1982 and was an arcade hit title. In this game you play Dig Dug, and it feels much like an inverse to Pac-Man, where instead of a preset maze, you get an open space to create a maze to attack enemies in, where you blow them up with your air pump, causing them to pop. It's an odd concept, but it works effectively, and I hear the praises sung for this game often with young and old gamers alike. I think it's because it fits a nice modern feel where it's not overly challenging. You can make good headway into this game, and along with that is the creativity of its gameplay. Managing your own path to take everything out, it gives you this open feeling that works well. It also has nice, cute graphics and weird little creatures. I think the art design shines. It's got cute music on top of that, and this is one of those magic arcade games where everything comes together to make something truly memorable. This one can keep me hooked for hours. It's no wonder that this game is a staple in all of these Namco collections. To me, this, Galaga, and Pac-Man are the dynamic trio that needs to be in every Namco collection, just based on pure historical importance. Even with that said, all of them are still just as fun as when they were first released. Next is Dig Dug Arrangement, the final arrangement of the bunch. This one came out in arcades in 1996. Here's another great arrangement, and this one might be my favorite of the three. I think that mainly comes from the fact that this doesn't change the true formula much. You dig around and blow up enemies. It's the simplicity that makes this feel akin to the original, but the presentation is updated so well that it makes it a strong addition. The sprite work on this is excellent, and there's variety everywhere. This is a level-based game, and there are different worlds, all with varying types of biomes to move around in. This comes with a new mix of different monsters, all with more complex skill sets and weird moves. This is the type of game that throws you for a loop with each new level. Throw in that now there are giant bosses to fight, and you have something that manages to feel fresh. I love the music and sounds here, and the way you move through the world, it all feels so satisfying. It's a smooth playing game, and it's one that I'm happy is easily playable here in this collection. It's another highlight in this mix. For racing fans, we have Pole Position from 1982 here. I love racing games, and Pole Position is one of those important genre-defining games. So many elements we would later find would get their start here. Here you get one track, you get in your car, shift from high to low gear, and you race. It's not easy though. You have to manage speeds on turns, or you will crash out. It's about maintaining speed, passing cars, and lasting as long as you can to reach a high score. If you played any old school F1 racer, this is about what you'd expect from that type of game, but it's done well. The look is a huge part of this, with a pseudo 3D design with a great sense of perspective on the track and cars. It captures a sense of speed that's surprising for 1982. The fact that this one is only one track might make it less replayable for people, and this one gets forgotten in this mix of games. Not only that, but I find it to be the hardest game of the bunch. It's easy to fly off turns or just miss checkpoints. It can be frustrating, but I still think it's fun. Though I do have to say the controls aren't the best for this one, where you have to use either the D-pad or an analog stick. It just loses a little bit of that control when you're not using a wheel, and it makes it a bit stiffer than it needs to. Yet, I still think this is a fun one. If you needed Pole Position but with more tracks, they included Pole Position 2 from 1983, which is just the same game, but with 4 tracks, all based on real places. You have Fuji Speedway from the first game, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Seaside based on a temporary circuit from 1982, and of course Suzuka Speedway. All tracks I love to see, except maybe Indianapolis, which is a bit basic, but it's cool to have. As far as graphics and gameplay go, it's the same game. So it's the same positive feelings I had as the last one, but better because it has more content. It makes you question why they have the first one at all, but I think it's more for historical context. Though it would have been cool to have been told that through the game, through a history section. In this lineup, we get Galaxian from 1979, which is the game right before Galaga. The idea of that would become Galaga is here, but that is a sequel that really took an idea and made it much better. Galaxian is a fixed shooter, but much slower and simpler than what would come after. At this point in history, just a few years and games felt leaps and bounds different. Here you just shoot at aliens similar to Space Invaders. They move back and forth, but unlike Space Invaders, here they will come down at you. Yet in Galaxian, you can't spam shots. You can only fire one shot at a time, making it feel a bit slower. Though for 1979, this game is impressive, and I do love the colors that they were able to use. Yet once again, like the first Pole Position, it feels like it's only here for preservation. Though Galaxian is different than Galaga, Galaga is far superior, and this game falls a bit to the wayside in this collection. If it had more history behind it, maybe I would feel better about this one, but here it feels like it's tagged on just to fill out some games, where something like Tower of Druaga or Rally X really could have fit in better. This one isn't my favorite, but I understand why it's here. On top of Pac-Man, you get Miss Pac-Man from 1982, so you get the better version of Pac-Man in this package. Although, unlike Galaxian or Pole Position, both Pac-Man and Miss Pac-Man are worthy to be included here based on the merits of their status in the mainstream. Miss Pac-Man plays very close to the original, where you control her through tunnels, but here you get much more variety that sets it apart. For one, there's a solid variety of mazes where the layouts change, as well as multiple tunnels around the different mazes. It also looks better too, with a much cleaner map structure. It feels smoother to me, and I love how the fruits move across the map, making everything feel more kinetic. Yet at its core, it's still the great maze chase design of Pac-Man, and you can't beat that. Take that concept and tweak it a bit, and you've got yourself another hit in this compilation. The final two games must be unlocked to play. To unlock Pac-Mania, you need to get a high score of 20,000 in Miss Pac-Man. Pac-Mania is an interesting arcade title from 1987 where Pac-Man goes isometric, giving it a pseudo 3D look, which was ahead of its time. Yet the gameplay remains similar. Pac-Man moves in a maze collecting pellets and eating ghosts, though Pac-Man can jump in this one, hopping over enemies, and there's a variety of enemies as well. So there is a bit of a difference here, and I think Pac-Mania is fine, but I don't love it. For one, the view is funky. I do not love how close the camera is here. I know that's to add difficulty, but it not only makes some encounters unfair, but also makes the game look a bit ugly. I do think there are good designs, but you don't get to appreciate them. Add in that this game is dreadfully slow. Pac-Man's movements feel like moving in sludge. Part of the fun of Pac-Man is the speed of getting pellets and moving on, yet here the levels last too long. I don't think this game is terrible, and I know this one has fans. I see people state this one as their favorite Pac-Man, but I can't get into it. It feels like a game that tried to change an already working formula, and it came out a mess. It's just not that fun, and there were many better options to include here. I may not have loved Pac-Mania, but I believe the other hidden title is the worst game of the bunch, and that's Pac-Attack, which you unlock for scoring 25,000 in Pac-Man. This is the only non-arcade title here today, coming out for the Super Nintendo and Genesis, as well as a few other consoles, and the one included here is the Genesis version from 1994. This is the one puzzle game in this pack, and this one is quite bland. If you are a longtime viewer, you know I love puzzle games. Puyo Puyo, Tetris, and Columns are all classics. They work with simplicity to create something engaging for hours. Pac-Attack doesn't quite have that. Here you get maze pieces and ghosts. You want to form mazes so Pac-Man can eat ghosts in a row, though you don't want to go too big, otherwise you'll reach the top of the screen, so you have to clear out maze pieces as well. This design is not nearly as addictive or speedy as a good puzzle should be, and I felt the design was bland. This is one I did not stick to for a long time, and it needed something like a CPU versus mode to spice it up. You do get a puzzle mode, which gives it a bit more structure, though. I do get that they added this one in to get more genres into the mix, but I don't think this was the right choice. Once again, this was an easily replaceable game. I hated getting so sour at the end of this game's list because there are a ton of classics here. At the end of the day, the 2 hidden games are just bonuses, and judging from the merits of the 10 games you get from the start, it's an excellent compilation. You can't go wrong with Pac-Man, Galaga, or Dig Dug. Throw in some surprisingly great arrangement versions, and you build up something unique in this pack of games. Games we've seen time and time again now, but in 2002, this was a nice, convenient way to play them. I do think it lacks in terms of extras with no history section, which is a huge letdown, and some notable games are left out here that I know could have been easily put in here. Yet for what it is at least a fun pack of games. So I'm ranking this, but there's a few caveats here. I have not reviewed Namco Museum 50th Anniversary yet, and that does have a better selection of games, so I'm not ranking this with that release in mind. Once I do review that game, it might change where this places on the list. Also, something I like doing with ranking lists is just keeping it in context of its time. If we look at this collection now, it's pretty rudimentary. These games have been re-released time and time again in better packs, and this release isn't exactly necessary today. Yet I want to put it up in my list with the impression that the Xbox is still modern, as I would with any of these games, ranking it in terms of Xbox releases, not what came after. So taking that in mind, Namco Museum is going to enter in at number 81 of the 128 games I've covered so far. I feel like as a compilation, this could have been a better package, but still is mid-tier because it's fun. It has a leg up on Marvel Nemesis in terms of replay value, where Namco Museum can easily be popped in and you can have fun with it. Area 51 is better though, because I feel that has a more memorable, unique experience versus the compilation design of this game. It seems like I was much nicer to this game than the era's critics. This game received a 59 average on Metacritic, meaning it received mixed reviews. IGN would give it a 3.9 out of 10, saying this release brought nothing new to the table and was a rehash of already re-released classics, and found it to be a cash cow. GameSpot would give it a 6.8, saying it was a fair release, though they felt that there were more classics they could have included. Official Xbox Magazine gave it a 6.4, saying that it had some great classics, but the lack of a museum Museum, or extras, was a major blow to Xbox owners. Though in terms of critical reviews, it would not matter. This game would sell like hotcakes on every console it was released on. Sometimes classics just have staying power. On the Xbox, according to estimates from VG Charts, it would sell 910,000 copies, almost hitting that million mark. Yet it was enough for this game to get a Platinum Hits release on the console, marking it as one of the best-selling Xbox games. This would also mean this was not the end for Namco collections. They love doing these, and every generation has some type of collection or single game re-release. No console generation is without some Pac-Man or Galaga. You know what though? I love that. If there's a piece of history that needs to be preserved, it's this stuff. So many young people are introduced to classic gaming through compilations like this. That was the story for me with this Xbox version, and I know I'm definitely not alone in having been introduced to classic games through Namco Museum. If you look at backlog, this game holds a solid 3.5 out of 5 with over 500 plays. Reviews are a little all over the place, but if there's one consensus, it's that people love Dig Dug. Yet let me know how you felt about this one in the comments below. Do you think it was just easy money for Namco or a worthwhile collection? I would appreciate reading your opinion. But that does wrap it up for this review. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, it really helps me out in the algorithm. Subscribe to keep up with more Xbox content, and be sure to check out my second channel, Camp Extras, for more gaming content. And I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube channel members. Thank you so much for your support. You really help out the channel, and I'll see you here next time at Camp Xbox.